there is another sneak preview from your point of view, another tryout from our point of view for our French Music Festival. And this particular piece that we're going to play for you today will perform again on Sunday afternoon, the 23rd of June, here likewise at the Armadale United Church in Australia. And this piece I'm incredibly pleased about doing this together with Jodie Ostenfeld and Jared Larkins, because I have known the piece for a long time. I've rarely heard it, it's not very often performed. And you'll hopefully hear that has nothing to do with the quality of the music or the importance of this piece. I think it's greatly significant, very beautiful music, and yet very rarely done. I don't know why. I have had the music for, I think, about 20 years. And I have at times tried to mount performances and it has never worked. So I now believe one of the reasons I had to come to Australia, besides playing with my friend Lena Schmaltz in the Armadale piano duo and working with the Choral Society, again this year with a lot of fun, and many other things, I think one of the reasons I had to come to Armadale was to finally perform this piece of music with Jared Larkins flute and Jodie Ostenfeld, who plays the viola today once again. We'll play a little bit from it. In fact, we'll play the first little bit that we don't need Jodie for, and then we'll talk a bit more. Nice already, right? And it's only the beginning, of course, of this piece. What do you think this is? It's pretty, right? What sort of piece do you think this is? Maybe somebody wants to take a guess at the composer, or maybe when it was composed. Or maybe you want to predict what is going to happen after this first bit. No? Anything?
Just, it has the feeling of a nocturne about it.
It's very, very beautiful, right? It has this sort of slightly melancholy, maybe,
yes.
Sort of feel. It's a bit slow, but not terribly slow. And so melodic, like a real song, right? Yeah. And you wonder what's going to happen next, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like water.
Yeah. I love that very much. Yeah. It's very liquid, very fluid in a way, very easy flowing, right? If it was singing, you would say, the words and the notes just roll out of the singer's mouth, right? Easy, easy, yes, yeah. And that, I think, that is this composer. Maybe more than many other French composers, even of that time. A lot of French music from about this time, a little bit earlier, I think has this easy sort of flowing thing, but maybe this composer in some ways even more than others. Nice, right? Yes, exactly right. You know, the lady over here is doing this nice. What's that?
I'm waiting for the thunderous.
Oh, okay, it's a little bit, or you're saying it's a bit too watery for you.
No.
You want a little bit more oomph.
No, it's going to come.
It's going to come. Yes, I can tell you. It may, I think some of it will come even today, but today we're not going to play the whole piece for you, because that would not be a sneak preview anymore. We're not going to give you the whole piece. We want you to come, obviously, to our concert when we play this on June 23rd here in Armadale. And particularly when you come then, at the end of the piece you'll get a lot of thunder and lightning. I can tell you that. But even today there will come a little bit more. Well, how about maybe Gerard would like to play the beginning one more time, because I think it's so nice. And then, how about we get you and you play a little bit more? So this already maybe a little bit more oomph here, right? A little bit, but not lots, but a little bit more, right? So what is happening? We had that beginning bit that you heard already, and you heard it twice now, right? And then there's this bit with the viola, right? So how do these two bits relate? And can you predict what's going to come after this? Well, you think these two bits don't relate at all?
Yes.
One bit was without a viola, one bit was...
Momentum. It's momentum.
Absolutely, yes. And it gains momentum, right? It becomes a little bit, moves a little bit more, yeah? Sure, absolutely. Anything else? Or? What do you think it says in the score at the beginning of when he plays alone? And maybe what does it say at the beginning, in the score of the beginning where the viola starts to play?
Sotto voce, perhaps.
Quite, sort of, that sort of thing, yes. But what else?
If you could put a name to that musical sentence,
Exactly.
what would you call it?
Well, if Gerard is agreeable, we'll do it one more time, and we'll add a next section. How would that be? And then maybe, no, we can talk further. In fact, we'll add two sections, because don't we, the next two sections sort of flow into each other. Yeah? Would that be okay? Okay. Can you start
I
off?
think that's good actually, because that, especially with the third one, it's
Exactly.
it all appears.
Yes, yeah, will become clearer, you're right. Yeah. But it's not, but forget all this technical stuff that I'm sort of fishing for. It's pretty, right? Don't you think it's pretty? And it's hard to believe that you don't know this, don't you think? Violists and maybe flutists in the audience, I don't know. Don't you think? It's like, it seems like such a classic, and yet, right, our violist friend? No idea what this is, right? No, never heard this before. No. Your viola repertoire is expanded quite a bit like all this Dutch viola music that they played last year and so forth, and now this, right? But it is French, of course, that we know. get a bit more of the picture, right? And some of you are smiling, I think so. But what's going on here? We had the beginning, then one thing, another thing, transition, and yet another thing. And it's obviously a... No? I thought you were going to say it.
No, I was just trying to concentrate on hearing all.
Oh, it's beautiful, right? So nice, right? It's so much interesting stuff. And like often you can hear how the viola says the same as the flute a little bit later, right?
A lovely conversation going on.
Yeah. And the piano sort of bringing it all together in a way.
Yes.
Well, sometimes, if I'm lucky. But at the beginning, really, it's very simple, right? It's a very simple song. And then it gets increasingly a little bit more, gains momentum, right? And becomes a little bit more complex maybe, right? But it's in a way, can you sort of hear how the same song is sort of there all the time? Yeah? Oh, what do you call that in music?
Variation.
Yeah. So that original song was the theme. Yes, of course, the theme. And then we had 1, 2, 3 variations so far, right? And of course, with a little bit of sometimes transitional stuff in the middle, like there's a beautiful flute solo on its own, right? That's so gorgeous, right? The flute alone. And then I love these moments where the piano comes back in with a few chords, you know, whoop. And then we go into the third variation, which is so magnificently beautiful, quite canonic, right? In fact, if that's okay, we'll play that transition one more time. Can you higher sharp? I give you the bar before, and then we run into the third variation.
Yes. Oh, sorry, yes, okay.
Chamber music piece, right? Flute, viola, piano. But there are moments that you think, oh, I don't know. It could almost be a symphony, right? Or a concerto, or maybe a symphonic poem. Because sometimes the piano is so rich that it almost sounds like an orchestra, right? Yeah, that is, I think, somewhat typical for this composer. Very rich writing, elegant, precise, but very rich and imaginative. And I bet you many of you have never heard of this composer, because he works very much in one particular sort of field, with a few small exceptions like this piece. But listen how, for example, the piano suggests, I think, like 2 flutes in the orchestra. Can you start the third variation one more time? hear how the two of them play the same notes in the end? Isn't that just magic? I think that is so beautiful. And that is very luxurious, of course. Luxurious, because like we have only 3 instruments here. If the two of them play the exact same notes, right? That's in a way wasting one instrument almost, right? So if you do that as a composer, that's a very expensive technique in like such a small group, right? It's a bit like a string quartet, like they all play unison. Well, you don't want to do it all the time because you only 4 instruments, you know what I mean? Or piano trio, like 2 strings playing octaves. Well, we only have 3 people, you know. Now the pianist has to play all the chords on his own. It's a bit that sort of thing. So I think that makes it a very classy, sort of very beautiful thing. You want to hear it one more time? We do the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars, tempo. 1. This theme with variations is actually not the beginning of this piece. It's, as it were, at the center of a bigger piece, trio obviously, with some very beautiful stuff before this. Development, intermezzo, and then comes that theme, the variations, and then there's the last big finale, if you like, where the whole thing comes together, and then you will hear this on the 23rd when you come on Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock, you hear the big explosions at the end, right? If this is orchestra, then in the end we have big tam-tam and big bass drums and so forth, and all the strings like this, and woodwind, pop, 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 French horns even, and where's Jenny? I wonder.
Pardon?
Jenny Heddy's not here. Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
I hope she's okay. Anyway, all that stuff will come in the finale. But before that finale starts, there's one more variation. Now, after all this sort of gentle, watery, bit more momentum gaining stuff, theme, and 3 variations so far, what do you think that 4th variation is going to be like? What would you want it to be like? Come on.
Well, if there's a finale to follow it,
Yeah.
you'd want it to lead.
A bit maybe, yeah.
But build up to.
Okay, yeah. But we just had something quite sort of quiet and beautiful and soft and gentle, right? In a way. Quite a bit of that. What do you often have before the finale in, say, a symphony?
Scherzo would be.
Oh, do your favor and play the transition one more time, 5 bars, a tempo. Quasi-scherzo, yes, it's quasi-scherzo. But character-wise, very, very much a scherzo.
Yes.
It's of course not a fast 3, but it's character-wise totally scherzo, right? And at this time, any guesses when this was written? Composers? You know it's French.
Is it Charpentier?
You mean Jacques Charpentier?
Yeah.
That would make it 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not Charpentier, but it's in a way a good guess.
Same time.
Yeah, as that's Jacques Charpentier, who's like early 20th century, first half 20th century sort of. Yeah. You want to refine it a bit? You want to hit a date, a year, just for the fun of it?
Well, I was thinking pre-World War One.
Yeah, and that is not true, but it's basically a very good guess. But it's not true. In other words, if it's not true, and let's assume it's a bit later than that, right? That means this music is a little bit old-fashioned. Yes?
Well, it depends on when it was written.
Well, I mean, if it's not 1910,
Yes.
but let's say if it was 1950, it would be very old-fashioned.
Yes.
If it was 1930, it would be a little bit old-fashioned, but not too bad, right? Yeah.
So was the composer's one of his later works? In that.
Actually, no, it's quite an early work. This composer was only born in the very beginning of the 20th century and wrote this when he was not 30 years old. It's a fairly early work in a way in his career, but obviously at a stage where he could really write. This is not a clumsy sort of student piece. Right? He knew what he was doing very, very much, and had, I think, from the beginning, to be honest, a very strong identity as a composer, and always kept that. Always kept that. In as late as the 1970s, when this composer was still alive and well, he and his wife later had a car accident, which not quite killed him, but very severely damaged him. He then did not work anymore. He was also a very good performer. But even as late as the 70s, this composer wrote a tiny little piece for choir, which is not very many notes, but exquisitely beautiful, and has the same, by now almost archaic character. Like in the 70s, to write a piece in F major with a few pretty chords and very simple sort of, melody and expression, you could almost not do that unless you had an enormously strong sense of who you were as a composer. We worked on this the other night. I don't have the music here, that I could have brought it, but that 70s piece that the composer wrote for choir goes something like this. We worked on that the other night with the Choral Society, right? Was that nice? 1, 2, 3, 4 members at least of the Choral Society here. Should be more, but okay. And that is the composer is Duduflet. And that choral piece from the 1970s is the Lord's Prayer, not Gepair. And it's so simple and so beautiful. And you said, well, how did a serious composer, very serious composer like Duduflet, have the courage to write such simple chords in 1970, what is it, 4 or something, right? And I think that means he had a very strong identity as a composer. And he couldn't care what Stockhausen and even Messiaen and other people in America, John Cage and people like that did at that time. He says, look, I just write a very, very good and beautiful and totally unique and very personal choral piece with simple chords. You do it too, man, right? And that same strength he had already when he was not 30, writing this trio for flute, viola, piano. Same, bit old-fashioned almost. This is a normal, like a piece in a normal key with a normal set of variations, a normal theme. Not as easy as you might think it is. It has enormous personality and enormous quality. But in some ways, that piece could have been written 20, 30, 40 years earlier, in a way. But it was written around 1930. Maurice Duduflet, really the only piece he wrote in this genre, chamber music. Duduflet as a performer was an organist, and a very good one. I studied organ in the Netherlands, and I'm very proud of it still. And with some very good teachers. And I played some Duduflet for a big exam I once took, and I worked a lot on this big piece, right? It was written at the same time as this piece. It's a bit of a parallel in some ways, although it's bigger. And it was a bit of a cliché in the Netherlands that all these famous French organists, well, yeah, they could play really fast and many notes, but were not really good organists, right, by our Dutch standards. And when I played that big Duduflet, one of my teachers said, he says, yeah, so and so and so and so, we talk about all kinds of things to do with performance. And my teacher said, well, you know, and Duduflet was not such a bad organist. And in the words of my teacher, that meant he was actually a darn good organist. By exception, was implied, right? All these other French organists, well, you don't really want to hear them, but Duduflet could actually play really well. And I think that also is so much in this music. I don't know about viola part and flute, but the piano part is so player-friendly. I'm not saying it's easy, right? But it's so well written for the instrument and so well written for the fingers of a keyboard player. I bet that Duduflet could play the piano quite well, even if organ was his main instrument. And he knew exactly how he wanted the pianist to use his hands. There are a number of places with very cute crossover. You know, a hand goes there, a hand goes there, and so forth. And it all makes so much sense. Physically, piano technique sort of wise, but also musically, because these two things have to go together always. And Duduflet understood that, I think, at the organ and at the piano. And I think he also really knew his other instruments, his viola and his flute, because he can bring them together so beautifully. As an aside, which obvious chamber music, French chamber music piece, did Duduflet have in the back of his mind writing this? Flute, viola. Nobody? Trio also, flute, viola and harp. This famous trio for flute, viola, harp by Debussy. I'm sure that was very much on Duduflet's mind when writing this. I'm not sure if the piano part was written for Duduflet himself. I'm not sure about first performance situation at all. But I'm sure flute and viola meant that was Debussy. The flute and viola combination goes back a long way, a long time. But that's another story, and I want to tell you that other story another time. And this, I hope, will lead to much more playing together with Gerard and Jody, which so far, only a few rehearsals, has already been so much fun, and led to the first time for me playing this piece, after trying to learn the notes for 20 years and finding people to play it with. So I'm very happy that we played at least a bit for you today. You want to hear the whole set one more time? Theme and 4 variations? And the stuff before, the prelude, and there is a recitative, both instruments, recitative, piano accompanying a bit, and then the big finale. You'll hear that on June 23rd. If you come to our concert, 2 o'clock, June 23rd, here, Amelie United Church, but come to the whole concert. Get a festival pass, you only live once, most of us, and come to our whole festival. Starts Friday night, the 21st of June, here with some incredibly cool French Baroque music by some of Australia's best Baroque specialists. Here is Duduflet, the theme and variations from a piece that's called Prelude, Recitative, and Variations, and Finale for flute. Alto is the French word for viola, flute, alto, and piano. And that theme, of course, is Dudeflay's own. It's, as we call, an original theme. Right? It's not a folk song or something, it's Dudeflay's own. There's all kinds of echoes of maybe French folk songs. I'm thinking in particular of a French Christmas carol, and I think it echoes that. But Dudeflay had it all in his head, his fingers, and most of all in his heart and soul, I think. And he had so much craftsmanship that he could come up with this melody of his own that had it all in it. And at the same time, a beautiful melody of his own, but also had the potential for these 4 wonderful variations. If I had it on, I would take my hat off for Dudeflay. I have Dudeflay so incredibly high, and it's sad in a way that he wrote so little. But in a way it's also good, because you can really get to know every piece by Dudeflay. It's only a few organ works, requiem, a little bit of choral music, chamber music, 1 or 2 orchestra pieces. That's it, easy. The whole thing fits on 2 or 3 CDs, I'm sure. But this trio, special. Flute, viola, piano. That was my choice for today, and it's one of my choices for our French music festival, La Française, a festival of French music in Australia's New England, coming up here June 21st through 23rd. But before that, next week, there will be another choice. Thank you for coming today.